So this year, I finally played all the Soulsborne Fromsoftware games, and I made YouTube reviews on every single game, and I also streamed them live on Twitch. So between my chat and the YouTube comment section, I've heard lots of people's opinions on these games. And one thing that I've noticed is that everyone loves something different about each title in the series. There will be an element from one game that people really enjoy and is what makes that game their favorite, and they wish the others were more like that. But then some other people like a different element for a different reason, and they want more of that. So today, I wanted to delve into this a little bit and talk about why Fromsoftware is probably the best high-profile studio we have in gaming right now. Before we jump into it, I mentioned I have reviews for each game on the channel, so check those out if you're interested, and if you like gaming reviews and essays on other topics, then maybe subscribe. Additionally, I mentioned I stream on Twitch, so come watch me play other titles at It's Tizzle7 if that interests you. Anyways, back to the topic at hand. I think the biggest point of discussion I see in the Souls community is how many people love the interconnected world of Dark Souls 1 and how they wish all the other titles were more like that. Sekiro was my first Souls game, and I found that had an incredibly interconnected world, so they still do this to some degree, and despite being open world, Elden Ring definitely has some of those elements as well, where the level loops back around on itself. So they still do incorporate this design element, just in different ways. Maybe it's because Dark Souls 1, it was a lot of people's first time experiencing that, so it stuck out more. Or after their first time experiencing it, it doesn't quite hit the same in other games like Sekiro. Or maybe it's because they did the best job of it in Dark Souls 1, so people want it to be on that same level. I'm not sure, but every one of these games has that classic ladder kickdown to open a shortcut, or that aha moment when you realize where you are and how it connects back to another part of the level that you were previously. Another thing that was going around Souls Twitter a few months ago was a clip of the Capra Demon boss fight and how people yearn for the slow and methodical fighting style from the early games, rather than the spastic roll spamming of a game like Elden Ring. How people miss the old games and how you used most of your stamina bar with a single heavy attack, and how the boss fights were slower paced. Personally, the second I fought my first boss in Dark Souls 3, I knew I was going to like that gameplay way more than Dark Souls 1 and 2. Not that those were bad, I just prefer the faster paced combat of Elden Ring and Dark Souls 3. And then you have people who love or hate Sekiro's combat. I personally found the combat in that game extremely satisfying and fun to learn. It is so tight and so well balanced, I absolutely love it. And it can be allowed to be so balanced thanks to only having to design their bosses around one weapon and one playstyle. Conversely, in a game like Elden Ring, there is near infinite combinations for you to choose from stat allocations to Ashes of War to weapons, that game becomes nigh impossible to balance. But that is also just as satisfying to build and theorycraft and come up with broken ways to abuse bosses. Personally, I love both. I love Sekiro for having to master the combat and movesets of every boss, and I love Elden Ring for giving you such a wide array of playstyles. I love both for different reasons, just like I love the interconnected world design of Dark Souls 1, as well as appreciate the more linear world design of Dark Souls 3, and the open world design of Elden Ring. I love them all for different reasons, and that right there is the reason Fromsoftware is the best studio doing it. With the Souls games, they definitely have a base formula, and that DNA is present in Elden Ring as well. But with each new game, they tinkered and tweaked things to try new stuff out. In Dark Souls 2, they added the adaptability stat, and that was widely disliked, so they never brought it back again. But the thing that I really want to emphasize and praise them for is them pushing the envelope and trying something different. With Bloodborne, they completely switched up the formula, and this playstyle worked for a lot of people. It wasn't my favorite, despite being someone who does love aggressive playstyles, but I just found the combat itself didn't work well with a lot of the bosses. It's designed around parrying, but lots of the huge beasts you couldn't really parry, or at least I couldn't, so it felt at odds with the design philosophy. But this more aggressive playstyle almost certainly gave them the bones for designing Dark Souls 3 more up-tempo combat, and then they perfected that aggressive playstyle in Sekiro. That game rewards aggression completely, but this time the bosses were more properly designed around it, unlike in Bloodborne. Dark Souls 2 had bonfire aesthetics, and for the life of me, I cannot figure out why they didn't put these into other games. People also say that that game has a lot of ganks, but it is nowhere near on the level of Demon's Souls. Some people say they wish that the newer titles actually had more of this to force the player to take their time through an area, but I don't agree. Maybe that's because even in Elden Ring, I always killed all the enemies my first time through an area anyways, so that I could explore every corner at my own pace to look for items and secrets. but I don't think the game needs to force you into combat, especially not on the same level as Demon's Souls. That shit was tedious as hell. Speaking of Demon's Souls, I really do not like that game. Yet, there were people flaming me for my review because they say it's great and their favorite. I can't for the life of me figure out what people like about that game. I just think it's so bad. But some people like it, and that is kind of the point I'm making in this video and why I want to praise Fromsoftware. No one can agree on what Soulsborne game is the best. Everyone has a different favorite, and I think that's friggin' awesome. It means they make different games to appeal to different people's tastes. I had a guy in my chat who has over 4,000 hours in Bloodborne. He absolutely loves that game, and I want to be clear, it has some of the best atmosphere and world building in any game ever, not just FromSoft games. The game oozes style, and I get why people enjoy that aspect. But personally, I wasn't all that fond of the game, but that's okay. You don't have to love every game they make. A lot of people were upset that they quote-unquote wasted time on developing a game like Elden Ring Night Rain, but as a roguelite enjoyer, I love that there is a roguelite Souls-like that I can play, and I think it's a damn good game. And I am sure that that is some other people's favorite in the series as well. Duskbloods is coming out later this year, and I don't like that it's a Switch 2 exclusive, especially because it's sort of co-op, and if there's one time I don't like playing co-op, it's on a Nintendo Switch. But all that aside, I'm sure they will add some new, never-before-seen elements to that game, and some of them may stick and be a hit, and others may be misses. But the important thing is that they are taking chances, taking those swings, and sometimes they are misses. The modern AAA gaming industry is lacking creativity and innovation now more than ever. Every fucking studio is just doing remakes, and a poor job of them. Look at Halo CE. My god, what an abomination. No one has any new good ideas. I love God of War, I really do, but all we get is God of War and Spider-Man games. Where's the modern day God of War? I've loved God of War my entire life, like literally since I was a child. Where's the next cool character for people to latch onto, the next Master Chief? They aren't being made, not by AAA anyways. We'll get our 10th installment of Spider-Man and we will like it. Look at all the cosplay we saw of Hornet for Silksong and all the characters from Claire Obscure Expedition 33. People still latch on to new characters. The problem is no game studios are making those. None are taking risks. But FromSoft always takes risks and tries new things. If they had stuck with the Demon's Souls formula after the first game, I'm confident I wouldn't be here making this video. The ideas and the groundwork were there, but the execution was awful in their first attempt. But they innovated and tried something new, and we got the mega hit that turned out to be Dark Souls, a game beloved by millions. Then they could have copied that formula, but they switched up a lot in Dark Souls 2. Again, some of it stuck, some didn't, but Dark Souls 2 is other people's favorite, especially PvP players. And it introduced power stancing, had a blend of healing consumables and Estus flasks. They did finite healing in Demon's Souls, which I hated, and then tried it again in Bloodborne, which I also hated. But maybe somebody out there actually enjoys finite healing for some batshit insane reason. Well, there you go. Go play those two games then, I guess. We don't know if we will get an Elden Ring 2, and I would love for another Elden Ring type experience, but could it just be a Tears of the Kingdom situation? I know Tears innovated with their building or crafting system a lot and people loved it, but for me, I actually preferred Breath of the Wild. Would I love an Elden Ring 2 as much as the original? I don't know, but speaking of Elden Ring, imagine if we didn't get an Elden Ring because FromSoft stuck to the same script, kept making their tight interconnected worlds like the Dark Souls series. Sure, more of the same would definitely be fun, but then we would have missed out on one of the games of the generation. We don't know if the Duskbloods will be a hit or a dud, but at least they're still trying new stuff. They could just put all their time and money into Elden Ring 2 and back up the Brinks truck, but they aren't. They keep on doing new things. And the best thing about that is then there's something for everyone. You want that slow and methodical fighting style and interconnected world? Then just go replay Dark Souls. It's right there. Just try a different build this time. Want to parry like a Master Shinobi? Replay Sekiro. This is my biggest point. So often I see people comment on my videos or say in my chat they wish X game was more like Y. And I get it, a Bloodborne 2 would be cool, but Bloodborne and all these other great games only exist because they dared to mix up the formula, and it is still there for you to play again and again as many people have. So I get that you want more elements from your favorite game, but for me, rather than wishing it was different, I tried to enjoy what the game was bringing to the table and doing well. As I said, I loved Elden Ring, but I equally loved Sekiro, but for totally different reasons. I love that they both exist because Fromsoftware was never scared to mix up their formula. Another design element that I really appreciate by them is their reuse of elements and concepts. First, for concepts, most if not all the games have a point in the level where you can only open a door from one side, or trigger an elevator, or kick down a ladder to connect an earlier part of the map to make a shortcut when you get much further through the level. This is just great level design. In the Dark Souls 3 DLC, I remember navigating tree branches to get through the level, something that they do again in Elden Ring. These are just two quick examples, but there are so many instances throughout all the games where it feels like a callback to a previous game. It's the DNA of the studio baked into the game that gives it that quintessential FromSoft feel, and I just love it. As for reusing assets, obviously on my Dark Souls 3 playthrough, I was hyped to rediscover Anor Londo. They changed some things about it, but yeah, I thought it was a good reuse. Another was there's an enemy in the jail cells in Dark Souls 3 that clearly went on to be the inspiration for the chained ogre boss in Sekiro. And one that I am sure has been called out a lot is that Erdtree avatars have many of the same animations as the Asylum demon. I am sure more knowledgeable Souls fans would be able to point out way more similarities in boss patterns, but this is an obvious one. The beauty of this is twofold. One, it gives us more enemies to fight, like the Chained Ogre or Erdtree Avatar, and two, it saves the devs time to put those development resources elsewhere. They reuse things very smartly. This is not laziness, this is reusing your assets correctly. But this time save is a win-win for everybody because it means we get more games more frequently. They went on a run with Dark Souls 2, Bloodborne, and Dark Souls 3 in essentially a 2-year span. Obviously in development for longer, but from release to release it was 25 months. Then you got Elden Ring and Shadow of the Erdtree a couple years after that, and then Elden Ring Night Rain a year after that, and then Duskblood's set to release later this year. Name me another studio that is pumping out games at a faster clip with this high of quality. I don't mind the reuse of certain aspects if it means we get so many fun new games. Like Elden Ring Night Rain is full of reused assets, but again, it's done really well, and then they put a new spin on the combat and game mode with it being a roguelite. It's a ton of fun and a great job by them. You have some studios like Naughty Dog and Bethesda who were once beloved studios who haven't released a game in over half a decade, and many other companies who once put out great games now just release games to try and sell microtransactions. Almost 13 minutes into the video and I haven't even touched on monetization. Fromsoftware is one of the few studios still making high quality video games at a fair price. Shadow of the Erdtree DLC is like $40 and that DLC has as much content as the old Souls mainline titles. I know this because I just played them all, and on average, Dark Souls 1 to 3 took me around 40 hours to beat, and that was including all the DLC for those games, and I didn't mainline the story at all, I explored a lot. Shadow of the Erdtree alone took me 35 hours, and there is not a single microtransaction in all of Elden Ring or the DLC. Just honest to goodness great gameplay and fun experiences from start to finish, how video games used to be made. Not nickel and diming your customers didn't used to be praiseworthy, rather it was rage-inducing if a company did do this. But now this practice has become so ubiquitous that it's worth praising when a studio doesn't succumb to these money-grubbing tactics. Again, Fromsoftware is a rarity in this industry, abiding by the old school or indie philosophy of gaming. Just make a great game and they will come. To be clear, there are still studios making great games, but it is becoming more and more rare in the AAA space, especially when they don't include any type of microtransactions. I just hope FromSoft keeps this up because they are sadly a dying breed in this modern capitalist hellscape. Anyways, I just wanted to talk about this because I've read thousands of comments over the last few months of people saying why they like X game or don't like Y, and I just wanted to show appreciation to Fromsoftware for giving us such a wide variety of gaming experiences, all while staying true to their creative vision. It's exceedingly rare in this day and age, and I hope Miyazaki lives forever and that they don't get an out-of-touch executive in charge who wants to make bullshit. Blizzard is nowhere near what they were in the early 2000s when they were cranking out games like World of Warcraft and Diablo. Bungie is on the verge of getting absorbed by Sony, and they brought the world Halo and Destiny. Once innovative studios who cared about making great games just turned into another soulless corporation who just wants to make money. Here's hoping Fromsoftware stays true to what they have been doing for the past 2 decades because it's clearly working, and they are one of the last bastions for us true gamers. I wish we had more studios like FromSoft who consistently put out banger titles on a regular release cadence. Let's just cherish and appreciate what we have while it lasts. Anyways, that's it. Go watch my reviews and subscribe for more gaming videos, and follow me on Twitch at itstizzle7. Comment down below what your favorite From Software game is and why. Lastly, thanks so much for watching to the end if you're still here. I appreciate it. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.